The how of practice really is going to be specific to just you. If you know yourself and then you start to know your instrument, then you're going to go far in music. Hey, this is Robert Monroe, and I'm here with a video about how to practice music. And this is literally for everyone. I know that sounds clickbait, but it is true. And the way that you know that it is true is because I'm going to tell you what you are going to be able to get from this video and also what I'm not going to do. What we're going to start with is a general overview of all the things you need to consider to be able to practice in a way that's going to be very optimal and give you great results. Basically, a general mindset of how to practice. It's not going to get into the nitty-gritty. I'm not going to give you 5 things to do today to get better at your instrument. I'm not going to tell you an exact prescriptive plan because guess what? I'm not you, and so therefore it will not work perfectly for you. So how to practice has to be a universal concept. We're going to start with some very big topics. It's going to be goals, habits, what to practice, and mental strategies and nuances. What this video is good for is providing a framework of what good practice is for basically everybody. I know I listed a caveat before about not getting that specific. I want to list one more, which is if you are a total beginner, this video is probably not for you because you don't have the framework yet in which to make these decisions. And so you might need a teacher or just to have a couple more years of experience under your belt. Let's get into it. Goals. You need a goal. And why do you need a goal? Well, imagine you're on a road trip. You're the passenger princess. You're handing out snacks. You're keeping everybody happy. And, nodding off occasionally, taking a little snooze. And then about 6 hours into this road trip, the driver, your buddy over there is just like, hey, where are we going? And you're like, oh, crap. Did I just waste 6 hours of my life? And let's be honest, more like 12 hours because you've been heading in the wrong direction the whole time? Well, that's kind of like what it is to not have a goal. So we need to set goals when we practice so we don't waste time. We need a goal for today. We need a goal for this week. We need a goal for the month, for the year, and to be honest, all the way to life. What do you want out of music? If you do not have a clear answer for that, we need to figure this out today. You're obviously watching this video, so you care something about music. We need goals set. This may be daunting, but seriously, think about this and use the trip analogy to back yourself up and realize this is important. Imagine you are planning to go from New York City all the way to California. If you don't have a plan, you don't have a goal, you're never going to get there. You're going to end up in Ohio or something and be stuck in Ohio. Who wants that? I'm just kidding. Ohio's a nice place. Calm down, Ohioans. Let's start with a goal for today. This should be something very specific and very easy and attainable. This should not be complicated or tough. This should be something like 2 measures. Just learn 2 measures. Or it could be, hey, I'm going to listen to a song and I'm going to write down 4 chords of the song. It could be, I'm going to spend 5 minutes practicing improv today. That's what I'm talking about. It should be short and sweet. That's it. If you're a little more advanced, you might need to bump that up because you need to do more. You need to accomplish more. You need to challenge yourself more. And that is perfectly fine, but it should be something very concrete and very addressable and achievable. It should be something that you should have no doubt in your mind if you have done or not done. Let's go to this week. If you have a teacher, this is already set for you if the teacher is good at their job at all. And if they do not set a weekly goal for you, you should probably find another teacher. I'm just being honest. Teachers, that is one of the most important things that we do is giving you a weekly goal to shoot for. If you do not have a teacher, though, you should just basically create a contract with yourself, some form of accountability that is very similar to if you had a teacher. Maybe have a notebook somewhere or a note open on an iPad or your phone and jot down and be like, okay, I am going to learn these pages. I'm going to do this much sight reading. I'm going to improvise for this length of time. I'm going to write this many tunes. You get the idea. Let's go to this month. You want to make sure whatever you're working on is realistic enough that you'll see some real solid progress in the month. The month is starting to be a fairly long time frame, so you can get a lot done in a month. It might be, hey, I want to be 20 BPM faster on all my scales. If you are a beginner to intermediate, this might be super achievable to like go from 80 to 100 BPM in 1 month if you really commit to it. This might be, I want to learn an entire piece. That's wonderful. It should be something that excites you, that gets you really motivated, and that you're excited to do, and you're aware that you're not going to see that progress necessarily day to day. You might see it week to week, but you'll definitely see it over the course of a month. Let's talk about goals for this year or entirely for life. A lot of times I think these are going to occupy the same space. A year is such a long time. You can have a really big, grand plan. I want to learn this instrument I've never played before in my life. I want to learn how to play jazz. I want to learn how to sight read. I want to learn to ear train. I want to play exactly like John Petrucci. Whatever that is, you can have that as this big grand plan, but sometimes you don't get to make that decision for a year. For example, if you're applying for colleges and you're doing auditions, maybe that's your entire practice. It's like, hey, I'm working on auditions. That's what it is for this year. Or you're trying to gig. It's like, okay, I got to learn how to play standards and I got to learn all the wedding literature so that I can gig. Otherwise, they really should overlap. And then you should just kind of take a little mental marker and use resources that you have to measure how on track you have been with your goals. Listen to recordings from years past, that type of thing. My final thought on goals is for long time frames, I think you should pick as lofty as a goal as your inspiration leads you. Do you want to be the best drummer in the world? Write that down. That's your goal. For short time frames, though, you want them to be as specific and as achievable as possible. If we're talking a week, you got to make that sucker really achievable. If we're talking a day, you better know exactly how many minutes that's going to take you to do. And if you don't know that, you might just still be a beginner and you might need a little bit of help. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's talk habits now. Consistency is what will make you good at music. We can talk talent and how much that helps. I have met really young people who just blow my mind in music, and it's obvious a form of talent. It definitely exists. But at the end of the day, the one thing that is going to make sure that you are as good at music as you personally can be is consistency. Anyone over the age of 30 will relate to this analogy a ton, which I know is a mistake because if I look at my analytics, most of you actually are under the age of 30, but just bear with me. You decide, hey, it's been a couple weeks, I need to get back into working out. And so you decide to maybe do a bit more weight than you normally do. You run that extra mile. You do that extra set because you're like, I got to get back into this. I got to go hardcore. What happens next? You wake up and your back is telling you, hey, what in the world did you do? Why did you do this to me? I don't think we're on speaking terms anymore. Actually, I just don't want to work for you anymore. You're just going to be in pain no matter what you do for the rest of the week. That is your body telling you, hey, we did something out of the norm, out of the blue, and guess what? Now you can't work out for the rest of the week. So in the effort to be consistent and really jump into it, you now have set yourself back even more. Instead, go in at a lowered expectation rate and develop a consistent pace. I am a huge advocate of shooting for 5 minutes of practice every single day. Anyone between the ages of 5 to 70 should have at least 5 minutes lying around their day doing nothing. Actually, it's been 10 minutes in this video already. And so if you've been watching this, guess what? You've already wasted 2 slots of 5 minutes that you could have been practicing. Anyway, I know you've already gotten your practicing done, so hey, we're on good terms. But I am passionate about music, you say. Oh, I am so into this. I can't help myself from playing for hours. That's wonderful. And if you can do that the next day and the next day and the next day, guess what? You're going to trounce everyone else because time really does matter. More is more. I love that particular thought process. I've heard a lot from like Rick Boogs in the weight training world. More is more. More volume of practice is going to lead to more gains for the most part. We may need to have a follow-up video on efficient practice, but for the most part, the more time you spend on the instrument, the better you will be. But if you spend 4 hours one day and then 0 hours for the next 6 days, that is worse than spending 30 minutes every day. And you may go, wait, 3.5 hours if you spend 30 minutes every day, 4 hours if you spend it on one day. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's the consistency that is going to bring you to where you want to be. What should you practice? Well, music, obviously. All joking aside, this can be a real struggle for some, and I think a blind spot for most. Some people really struggle choosing what to do, especially if you are self-taught and maybe you don't have a teacher. But in reality, you do get to choose, and this is super cool. It's kind of like being in an RPG, a role-playing game like Diablo or Elden Ring. You get to choose the skills that you get better at. And so you need to think goal-wise again. We're going back to that. And when we're thinking about what to get better at, we want to think about short-term plans. What will get me better at this piece, this gig, this opportunity I have right in front of me or something I enjoy versus what is going to get me better in the long run over my entire career. I will use myself as an example. I've got a wedding this weekend. It's probably going to be somewhere between 50 to 100 songs on the set list. I don't know yet. I know it's Thursday, so literally I have Friday and then Saturday. This is pretty typical in my business. I'm going to have to practice those songs to make sure that I know them well enough to play. But at the same time, I don't want to just get better for playing weddings. I want to get better at jazz. I want to get better at songwriting. I want to get better at bass and drums and guitar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split my time between learning those 50 to 100 songs and reviewing them at the same time as I'm working on these other skills. So to summarize what to practice, pick things that make you feel accomplished this week, but also have some set that are going to lead to bigger and bigger things. The best, easiest way to explain this is you want to do scales, but you also want to practice a specific piece that you like. The scales get you better long term. The specific piece will give you that feeling of accomplishment and feeling good for today. That leads us to the fourth thing, which is kind of a catch-all, which is mental strategies and nuances. I feel like I've already mentioned quite a few that I personally enjoy in this video during the other subjects, like picking small goals to win. This is huge. When you get these early wins in, they're going to make everything else feel better. And that's why I love things like 5-minute practice sessions. It just makes it so easy. But there's a few more that I would like to mention. For some of you who have no problem practicing, but never get to what is hard and holding you back, put the hard stuff first. You know, you've heard that saying before, eat a live bullfrog in the morning. That'll be the hardest thing you do. You probably haven't heard that. That's a saying in the South, but you get the idea. Do something hard first, and then everything else will just be kind of easy after that. For some of you, maybe even getting the motivation to sit down at your instrument is a little scary. Maybe you've had some bad experiences. Maybe you got a negative self-image, self-talk in there going, ugh, you suck at piano. You suck at your instrument. You can't do this. Well, to shut that voice up, just walk over to your instrument and play the easiest thing, the thing that is the most no-brainer thing for you. Maybe even just pling, plong, plong, whatever. Just do anything, and what that will do is get you started and then move to the hard stuff. So you can kind of play whichever side you really need to do. Final thing in this mental category is to remind yourself of your victories. It's so easy as a musician to get used to what you can do, and then you get better, and then you get used to that, and then you're like, ugh, I haven't gotten any better. Well, the truth is you've just gotten used to a normal you. And so what you need to do is have ways to track your progress. So this is one of the reasons why I like recording myself, because then you can hear what you used to sound like versus what you sound like right now. And you can go like, oh, I really have gotten better. That's great. So much of practicing is this mental game. For very few people, practice is a inherently enjoyable task. So you have to find ways to make it enjoyable and to motivate yourself. How did I make a long 16-minute now practice guide without actually talking about how to practice? Well, it's because it really is complicated and gnarly, and it's not very specific, because the problem with being specific is then it will not actually work for very many people. And I wanted to give this idea and talk really in depth about meta practice. That's really what we've been spending this whole time about. That's your 10-point word. If anyone watches my videos, you know I love to throw out words to impress your friends. Well, today it's meta practice. The how of practice really is going to be specific to just you. So if you know yourself and then you start to know your instrument, then you're going to go far in music. This has been Robert Monroe. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and leave a comment on anything that you picked up from this or anything I left off. And if you want to know about anything else in music, I'd be glad to help. And I hope you have a wonderful day.